You all for coming today. This is just going to be a short informative speech about the federal tax filing statuses. So there are two things that people say are inevitable: debt and taxes. And sometimes it gets a little unclear which of them is more unpleasant. So the purpose of this today is going to help you get an idea of the first step that you need to do in order to file your own taxes, and that's understand what filing status you need to go with. So we'll take a look. Right here is a list of the 5 federal filing statuses. And this is all coming from IRS Publication 501, which is the primary publication from the IRS for this year about basics, about filing statuses, standard deductions, personal exemptions, all the most basic parts of tax preparation. So in the publication, it says taxpayers must use one of 5 filing statuses. Filing statuses impacts the calculation of income tax, affects the amount of the standard deductions, and determines allowance or limitation of certain credits and deductions, and this puts them in order from the most beneficial to the least beneficial to the taxpayer. So the 5 filing statuses right here are married filing jointly, qualifying widower with dependent child, head of household, single, and married filing separately. And so the most beneficial is married filing jointly, and the last being married filing separately. So we're going to take a look at each of these to determine exactly who gets to qualify for them and what kind of effects they have on your taxes. So the first one we're going to look at is the standard deduction. So the standard deduction is actually an amount of money that the IRS allows you to take off the top of your income that you don't have to pay taxes on. And the assumption for the standard deduction is this is the amount of money that you need to perform the most basic aspects of life. So just for the basics of food and shelter, and the IRS doesn't want to tax you on that money because everyone needs that just to live. And they're going to determine the amount of money they're going to take off based on your filing status, which is sort of a description of your living situation. So the most beneficial is, as you can see from this list, is married filing jointly. You get $12,600 taken off the top of your income if you're married filing jointly. Now, if you look here, the same number is for qualifying widower. So qualifying widower are people whose spouse had passed away the previous year, and they have to have a dependent child or a qualifying child to make them a qualifying widower. So when your spouse passes away the year they pass, you're still going to file married filing jointly, which is what everyone that's legally married has to file. And then the 2 years after that, you can still claim qualifying widower and allow yourself the higher standard deduction, sort of as a way of the IRS helping you ease the transition from losing your spouse. Right behind that in standard deduction list is the head of household filing status. Now, the important thing about the head of household filing status is you can't file head of household if you're still legally married, unless the IRS considers you unmarried. And this is something that I see a lot of people get confused about when they're doing their taxes. The IRS considers you unmarried if you have been separated from your spouse and you haven't lived together at any point during the last 6 months of the tax year. So if you and your spouse are still legally married, but you've been separated and living apart for the last 6 months, then you can do head of household, even though you're still legally married. Now, to qualify for head of household, you do have to have a qualifying dependent, and that's going to be someone that's like your own child, a niece or a nephew, a grandchild, a brother or sister, someone that's directly related to you. Things like cousins and friends and things like that don't count for head of household. Now, if you're not married, you can also claim head of household, of course, as long as you you support half the bills for the house and you have a qualifying dependent. That's going to be any one of those people that's related to you, do it closely, and as long as you're taking care of them, you'll be able to file a head of household. And then under the next most beneficial is going to be single. That's sort of a catch-all status that anyone that's not married and doesn't have any qualifying dependents can use. That doesn't mean you can't have any dependents when you're single, when you're filing single. You can file single as long as you, with dependents, but unless they're a closely related dependent, then you can only claim them as a dependent. It doesn't qualify as you as head of household. And then finally, married filing separately, which is in general the least beneficial status that you can claim. That one has the same standard deduction as single, as you can see here. It's both $6,300, but you also lose the ability to claim certain credits and things on your taxes, and we're going to look at those later and see exactly what they are. There's a couple of other things when we get to another slide on married filing separately we'll talk about then. The next big thing that is affected on your taxes by your filing status is going to be your tax rate. So the first and pretty much the least beneficial is going to be single. And if you look at this slide, you can see that the tax rate of 10% is going to apply for the first $0 to $9,275 that you make. So you'll have a tax rate of 10% on all of that income. And then between $9,276 and $37,650, you're going to have a 15% tax rate on that section of income. Then it goes up to 25 between 5,000 or so and 37,000, 28 between 18 and 91, 33 between 46 and 190, 35 between 119 and 413, and then up to right below 40% at 39.6% between anything over 415. Between over $415,000. So the tax rates stagger as you get up in income, and you only get taxed on the income that you made above the lower tax bracket. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see that these levels change depending on your filing status. So with single, your 10% tax rate was between $0 and $9,000. But if you're married, filing jointly, or a qualifying widower, your tax rate for 10% is going to be between $0 and $18,000. So you can make almost twice as much money and get the lower tax rate instead of being single. So you can see how not only are you going to get a higher standard deduction, which lowers your taxable income, but you're also going to be able to make more money and still be taxed at a lower rate. So the filing status really affects two big aspects of your return. The rest of this is a look at married filing separately. This one is a little bit worse than single if you look at it. So it's around the same for the 10% tax rate. But then if you look, you start paying the highest tax rate of 39.6, anything over $233,000. So that's almost around half of what you max out at on single. And they do this because they really want to discourage people from married filing separately, because a lot of people would want to claim married filing separately, and because they would want to separate their wife and their income, their spouse and their income, especially if one of the spouses makes lower money. And that way, so say if you're married to someone and you make $200,000 a year, but your spouse only makes $20,000, $30,000 a year, some people might want to try to put all the kids on their spouse and then get all of the low income credits, like the earned income credit, things like that, so they get a bunch of money from the IRS. So they're trying to discourage spouses from filing separately just to get those low income benefits. Another problem with married filing separately is you lose a bunch of the other credits you can get. Now the biggest one that you want to talk about is probably the earned income credit. That's a low income that I was just mentioning. But you also can't get credit for things like the child and dependent care expenses. So you can't claim daycare expenses for your children. You can't get adoption credits. So if you adopt a child, you can't get any credits for that. And then there's a bunch of these other, if you want to take a look at them, it's just tax-free exclusions on U.S. bond interest, Social Security benefits. You can't get the credit for the elderly and disabled. You can't take the deduction for college tuition expenses. You can't take the student loan interest deduction. You can't get the American Opportunity Credit and Lifetime Learning Credit, which are big refundable credits that you get for being able to go to to higher education like college. You get a lower deduction on net capital losses. You lose traditional IRA deductions and Roth IRA contributions. So there's a lot of things that you lose when you do married filing separately. Most people, it's not a good idea for, but there are some specific cases where the spouses have specific income situations where it might be beneficial. But most people, the vast majority of people, are not going to be benefited by filing separately. And then just looking at this again, this is head of household. Head of household is a little bit better than single, but not as good as married filing jointly. As you can see, you get a 10% tax rate from $0 to $13,000 here instead of $9,000, but the maximum does kick in again at $441,000. Alrighty, in conclusion, everyone has to file taxes, and you should know the basics of starting your own income tax returns, and understanding the filing status is definitely the first step into getting your tax returns prepared by yourself. And with these tools, you can hopefully start filing your own taxes, or you can give your tax preparer a head start on each of your year's returns, and hopefully this will demystify the inevitable and ease that yearly tax anxiety. All right, any questions? All right, well, thank you all for coming.